Hello and welcome to another edition of another book review. This week I'll be reviewing Ryan North's Romeo and or Juliet. Talk a little bit about the author, talk about what this book is, talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off with what I'll be reading for next time. So Ryan North is primarily known for his comic book work. He is the co-creator, I believe, of The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, which is a Marvel Comics book. This is the first of his stuff that I've read, but apparently this is the second book in kind of a loose series, I guess, as it were, because he also had a very successful Kickstarter for a similar book to this, but focused around Hamlet. As I said, this is the first of his stuff that I've read. What this is, Romeo and or Juliet, it's essentially the William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, but done as, if you're old enough to remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books from the late 80s, early 90s, it's basically that, but on steroids. So you have kind of branching paths that take you to different pages and that kind of fork out, and you get kind of different endings depending on the choices you choose for the characters. So it's a lot of fun, and Ryan North has a very peculiar sense of humor that made the book both at times kind of zany and definitely taking, I think, the Shakespearean work and kind of moving it to different directions. There's some pop culture references in the book. But he also, I think, does a good job of retaining a lot of the spirit of the work while having kind of a reverent sense of humor. So I think it was a lot of fun. It's 450 pages. I made sure I had a spreadsheet to make sure I got every single answer, every single possible choice to get a full review for this. But basically, you go in and you choose pretty quickly if you want to follow Romeo or follow Juliet, and the paths fork, and you can get all kinds of different answers and different endings, which I thought was really cool. And I think he also does a good job he does take direct quotes from the work, from Shakespeare's work, but he also incorporates other pieces of Shakespearean writing and Shakespearean plays into it, and characters from other plays in, I think, a really interesting way. I think that he does a good job of commenting on kind of some of the gender politics of the time and kind of how we would see those things today, and kind of making fun of them on one hand, but also I think treating them with a level of respect. And it's not straight him, didn't really feel mean-spirited as far as some of that stuff, which I thought was really a hard line to walk. And I think he also, some of the endings are really, really sad. Some of them are really happy. Some of them are really funny. Some of them are really poignant. And I think he does a really good job of having those different things while having kind of the tone, while it's not consistent, it didn't feel wildly different when you got to the end of a certain path that you were going down. I mean, for instance, the one of the paths the endings I had was, the first one I had was I ended up being a Romeo and choking on breakfast. And so that was one of the funnier ones. And there are definitely a lot of funnier ones, but there are definitely still some that are relatively poignant and make you sit back and pause, which I thought was definitely done. So those are a lot of things that I enjoyed about it. I think if there's a couple things I didn't like about it, one of them was my fault. I read this relatively quickly. I think this book is really enjoyable if you take your time and not trying to just bust through it as quickly as you can. If you take your time reading it and just kind of going a little slower than I went to get the different endings, as it were. I think there are enough like Easter eggs in the book that make it really fun and rereadable. I don't want to give any of those away because I think those would be kind of spoilers, but there's a lot of fun things that he does in there to make the book rereadable for you. I'd say the other downside was more of a personal preference thing. I think one of the through gags in the book is that Juliet is very physically strong and she works out all the time. I think he did that, and it's been a while since I've read Romeo and Juliet, and it's actually funny because I read this when I was original in high school, and there are so many of these things that I forgot. They're characters that I completely forgot who are in both works. And I'm like, I have no idea who that is. And sure enough, they were in both works. He didn't make up any of these characters. But one of the gags he has throughout the book is that Juliet is very physically fit, and I didn't really understand. It was like a joke that kept going, and I think he may have done that to give her a little bit more make her a little bit more interesting of a character. For me personally, I didn't really need that as much, and it was like a joke that I just didn't get. So that was I think one of the few things on here that it kind of misfired for me. overall, I had a lot of fun with this. I think if you get past, if you enjoy his style of writing, I think you'll definitely enjoy this. I think that there is a certain sense of humor to it that I could see some people really not gelling with, but I think this is a fun book to, if nothing else, give a try if you come across it. So Romeo and or Juliet by Ryan North. I would recommend this to, it's a little difficult to recommend as far as the age range. I would say that the writing style and the sense of humor, to me, you could read as a middle schooler. I think some of the material, just as in the original Shakespeare play, maybe lends itself to being a little bit older. So I would say maybe as soon as someone's able to read Romeo and Juliet, give them this as kind of like a counterpoint. So I would say maybe, I read it when I was a freshman in high school. I don't think any freshman in high school reading this would be too, what's the word I'm looking for? Shocked by anything in the book. It's relatively tame, again, comparing it to the original Shakespeare, and I think he does a really good job of not getting overly graphic with some of the violence and some of the sexual nature of the work. So that's Ryan North's Romeo and or Juliet. I enjoyed it a lot. I recommend it. And next time I will be reading Eric Kaufman's White Shift. So until next time, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you've gotten a chance to read Romeo and or Juliet, please leave me a comment in the comment section below. There's one ending that I could not seem to get to organically. And if you had a similar issue, otherwise, and like I said before, this is kind of a branching paths book. So the editing of it was done really, really well as far as making sure everything was logical and followed. There's one path that I couldn't get to organically. I couldn't find any kind of prerequisite path. So if you did find all of them, please let me know. Until next time, bye.